Stop. If you're over 60, your morning coffee could be doing more than waking you up. It might be quietly raising your blood sugar without you even realizing it. I'm Dr. Jessica Parker, and today I'll reveal the common coffee mistake millions of seniors make every day, plus one simple change that may help support healthier blood sugar levels. The number one mistake at the end surprises almost everyone. Don't miss it. The biggest mistake most adults over 60 make with coffee isn't drinking it. It's believing that coffee affects everyone the same way. That's a comforting idea because it allows us to follow the same morning routine we've had for decades without ever questioning it. The alarm rings, the coffee brews, the first sip feels familiar, and the brain interprets that feeling as proof that everything is working exactly as it should. But the human body doesn't stay the same simply because your habits do. This is one of the least understood truths about aging. While your morning routine may look identical to the one you followed 20 years ago, the biology underneath that routine has changed dramatically. Your muscles respond differently to insulin. Your liver processes nutrients differently. Your sleep patterns shift. Your hormones fluctuate. Even the way your body handles caffeine evolves with age. Yet most people continue drinking coffee exactly the way they always have, assuming yesterday's habits will still produce tomorrow's health. That assumption is where the real danger begins. Human behavior is built on repetition. Once a habit becomes comfortable, the brain stops examining it. Scientists call this automatic behavior. It's one of the brain's greatest strengths because it saves mental energy, but it can also become one of your greatest weaknesses. Think about how many mornings you've prepared coffee without consciously thinking about what you're doing. The process happens almost automatically. You pour, stir, drink, and move on with your day. Very few people stop to ask whether the ingredients they're adding, the amount they're drinking, or the timing of that first cup still matches the needs of their body after 60. The brain rewards familiarity because familiarity feels safe. Unfortunately, biology doesn't reward familiarity. It rewards adaptation. The body expects you to adjust as it changes. When you don't, small problems quietly begin to grow beneath the surface. One of the most overlooked realities of blood sugar is that it isn't influenced by one dramatic decision. It responds to thousands of tiny signals throughout the day. Sleep, stress, movement, meal timing, and food choices all play important roles. Coffee can also fit into that picture, but the details matter. For example, what you add to your coffee, whether you drink it on an empty stomach, and how it fits into your overall eating pattern may influence how your body responds. For some people, especially those with pre-diabetes or diabetes, these choices deserve thoughtful attention. This doesn't mean coffee is harmful or that everyone should stop drinking it. In fact, research has linked regular coffee consumption with several potential health benefits in many adults. The hidden lesson is not about fear, it's about awareness. Two people can drink the same cup of coffee and have completely different responses, depending on their overall health, medications, sleep, and daily habits. Imagine two neighbors who have both reached the age of 70. Every morning they each drink coffee before breakfast. One fills the cup with several spoonfuls of sugar and flavored creamer, then spends the rest of the morning sitting in a chair. The other enjoys plain coffee or coffee with minimal added sugar, eats a balanced breakfast that includes protein and fiber, and takes a short walk afterward. By lunchtime, their bodies may be responding very differently, not because coffee itself is magical, but because coffee became part of two completely different lifestyles. This is the hidden truth that most people miss. The body doesn't judge one habit in isolation. It evaluates the entire pattern. Health is created by combinations, not by single moments. Behavioral psychology teaches us something uncomfortable. People rarely change until they experience consequences. They wait for elevated blood sugar, an unexpected diagnosis, or a frightening conversation with their doctor before questioning routines that have existed for years. But the wisest people don't wait for fear to become their teacher. They let curiosity guide them first. They ask better questions. Is this morning routine still serving me? Could one small adjustment make a meaningful difference? Am I protecting the body that has carried me through every chapter of my life? Or am I assuming it will continue adapting to habits that no longer fit its needs? The most powerful health changes rarely come from giving up everything you enjoy. They come from understanding your body well enough to make smarter decisions without losing the simple pleasures that matter. Coffee doesn't have to become your enemy, but neither should it become a habit you never question simply because it feels familiar. The strongest people are not those who cling to yesterday's routines. They are the ones willing to evolve as their body evolves. Because the greatest threat to your future health isn't always what's in your coffee cup. It's believing that habits should never change just because they've always been part of your life. One of the biggest misconceptions about coffee isn't the coffee itself, it's what people quietly pour into it every single morning without a second thought. Most adults over 60 believe the danger begins with the caffeine, but the hidden truth is that the ingredients surrounding the coffee often have a much greater influence on long-term metabolic health than the coffee ever will. This is where human psychology becomes fascinating. The brain doesn't pay close attention to habits that feel small. A spoonful of sugar seems harmless. A splash of flavored creamer feels insignificant. A drizzle of sweet syrup looks like a reward you've earned after decades of hard work. Individually, none of these choices feels important. But biology never judges your decisions one at a time. Your body adds them together, day after day, year after year. That's how invisible patterns become visible health problems. Think about how habits are formed. Nobody wakes up one morning intending to consume excess added sugar every day. It happens gradually. 1 teaspoon becomes 2 because it tastes better. A flavored creamer replaces plain milk because it's more enjoyable. A specialty coffee from the drive-thru becomes part of the daily routine because it saves time. Before long, the coffee isn't simply coffee anymore. It's become a dessert disguised as a beverage. The most remarkable part is that your brain stops noticing the change because familiarity creates comfort. Behavioral scientists call this habituation. Once something becomes routine, your mind labels it as normal, even if that routine slowly moves you away from the health you hope to maintain. Now consider what happens after the age of 60. Your body becomes more efficient at teaching you one important lesson. Every small decision matters more than it used to. Muscles may respond differently to insulin than they did decades earlier. Physical activity often decreases. Sleep may become lighter and more interrupted. Stress can have a greater effect on appetite and daily energy. These normal changes mean that the choices surrounding your morning coffee deserve more attention than they did when you were 40. This doesn't mean everyone must drink black coffee or eliminate every ingredient they enjoy. It means becoming aware of what you're actually consuming instead of assuming it's just coffee. Imagine 2 friends meeting every morning at the same cafe. One orders a plain cup of coffee with a small amount of milk. The other orders a large flavored drink topped with whipped cream, sweet syrups, and extra sugar. Both proudly tell people they only drink 1 coffee a day. Technically, they're both correct. Biologically, however, their bodies are receiving 2 completely different messages. One beverage contributes relatively little beyond the coffee itself. The other may deliver a substantial amount of added sugar and calories before breakfast has even begun. The difference isn't obvious because both drinks share the same name. This is how language quietly hides reality. We focus on the word coffee while overlooking everything else that entered the cup. The deeper lesson isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. Human beings naturally underestimate repeated behaviors that feel ordinary. We carefully count desserts after dinner, but rarely count the sugar dissolved into morning drinks. We worry about large meals while ignoring liquid calories that become part of our daily identity. Yet the body doesn't distinguish between calories you chew and calories you sip. It responds to the total pattern. Your metabolism listens to every signal, whether you notice it or not. This is where emotional control quietly enters the conversation. Many people don't drink sweet coffee because their bodies need it. They drink it because it has become associated with comfort, routine, and reward. That first sip represents peace before a busy day. It represents familiarity. It represents childhood memories or years of repeating the same comforting ritual. The challenge is recognizing the difference between nourishing your emotions and nourishing your body. Sometimes they overlap beautifully. Sometimes they don't. The strongest people aren't those who eliminate every pleasure. They're the ones who learn how to enjoy life's routines without allowing those routines to quietly work against their long-term health. The hidden truth is that your morning cup isn't simply a beverage, it's a daily decision repeated hundreds of times every year. Each repetition strengthens a habit, and each habit gradually shapes your future. The goal isn't perfection, the goal is consciousness. When you understand what you're putting into your cup and why you're putting it there, you reclaim control over a routine that may have been running on autopilot for decades. Because the ingredients you ignore every morning may not change your health overnight, but the habits you repeat every morning can quietly shape the rest of your life. One of the most overlooked truths about coffee has nothing to do with what you drink. It has everything to do with when you drink it. Most people over 60 have followed the same morning routine for decades without ever questioning it. The alarm goes off, the coffee starts brewing, and before the body has fully awakened, the first cup is already gone. It feels harmless because it has become familiar, but familiarity is one of the greatest illusions in human behavior. The brain equates routine with safety, even when the body has quietly changed over time. Here's the uncomfortable reality. Your body at 65 is not the same body it was at 35. Hormones shift, sleep patterns change, muscle mass naturally declines. The way your body responds to food, stress, and caffeine evolves. Yet millions of people continue following yesterday's routine with today's biology, assuming that if nothing feels dramatically wrong, everything must still be right. That assumption is where awareness begins to disappear. Every morning your body wakes up performing one of the most remarkable balancing acts in human biology. Hormones begin preparing you for the day. Blood sugar is carefully regulated to provide energy for your brain and muscles. Your nervous system gradually shifts from deep rest into full alertness. During this transition, every decision you make sends powerful signals throughout your body. Coffee becomes one of those signals. For many people, coffee can absolutely be part of a healthy lifestyle. Research even suggests that regular coffee consumption is associated with several potential health benefits, but the context matters. Drinking coffee after a poor night's sleep, pairing it with a breakfast high in added sugars, or relying on it instead of nourishing food may lead to a very different experience than drinking it alongside a balanced meal and healthy daily habits. The hidden lesson is that coffee doesn't exist in isolation. Your body responds to the complete pattern, not just the cup in your hand. Behavioral science reveals something fascinating. Human beings rarely notice habits that happen automatically. Think about driving home from work. Sometimes you arrive without remembering every turn because your brain has switched into autopilot. Morning routines work the same way. The first cup of coffee often happens before you've consciously thought about your body's needs. You're not making a fresh decision, you are replaying yesterday's behavior. The danger isn't coffee, the danger is unconscious repetition. Every habit repeated without awareness slowly gains control over your life. That is why the healthiest people aren't necessarily those with the strongest willpower. They are the ones who pause long enough to ask a simple question before acting. What does my body actually need today? Imagine two people, both in their late 60s. One wakes after a restless night, skips breakfast, drinks a large sweetened coffee immediately, and spends the morning sitting at a desk or in a recliner. The other begins the day with a glass of water, eats a breakfast containing protein and fiber, enjoys coffee in moderation, and takes a short walk afterward. By noon, they may feel completely different, not because one cup of coffee is magical, but because coffee became part of two very different lifestyles. The body doesn't evaluate isolated events. It interprets patterns. Every choice interacts with the next. Sleep influences appetite. Appetite influences food choices. Food choices influence energy. Energy influences movement. Movement influences blood sugar. Coffee simply enters that conversation. It never tells the whole story by itself. There is another psychological trap few people recognize. We often mistake energy for health. Coffee makes us feel more awake, more focused, and more productive. That temporary alertness can create the illusion that our body is functioning better than it really is. But feeling energized isn't always the same as being healthy. Sometimes the body is asking for better sleep, better nutrition, less stress, or more movement, while the mind reaches for another cup because it is faster and easier. The coffee becomes a substitute for listening to the body's quieter signals. Over time, people stop asking why they are tired in the first place. They simply continue repeating the solution they know best. The deepest truth is that your morning routine is writing your future one day at a time. It isn't built by dramatic decisions or once-a-year resolutions. It is built by ordinary moments repeated so often that they become invisible. The time you drink your coffee, what you pair it with, how much you consume, and how it fits into your overall lifestyle all deserve thoughtful attention. The goal isn't to fear coffee or abandon a ritual you enjoy. The goal is to stop living on autopilot. Because the most powerful health transformation doesn't begin when you change what's in your cup. It begins the moment you become aware of the habits that have been quietly shaping your life all along. The greatest health transformation after the age of 60 rarely begins with a prescription, a miracle supplement, or an expensive medical breakthrough. It begins with something far less exciting and far more powerful, a routine. Human beings are creatures of patterns. Nearly half of what you do every day happens without conscious thought. You wake up at the same time, prepare breakfast the same way, pour the same cup of coffee, and follow the same sequence of actions you have repeated for years. The brain loves routines because they conserve energy. Once a habit becomes automatic, your mind no longer questions it. This is one of the greatest strengths of human psychology, but it is also one of its greatest blind spots. The habits that shape your future are often the ones you no longer notice. That's why so many adults over 60 continue following morning routines that no longer match the needs of their changing bodies. They believe that because a routine feels comfortable, it must still be serving them. But comfort and health are not always the same thing. Think about coffee for a moment. For millions of people, it represents far more than caffeine. It represents security. It signals that the day has officially begun. It creates a moment of peace before responsibilities take over. There is nothing wrong with enjoying that ritual. In fact, research suggests that moderate coffee consumption can fit into a healthy lifestyle for many adults. The hidden question is not whether coffee belongs in your life. The hidden question is whether your entire morning routine is working with your body's biology or quietly working against it. Coffee should never become a replacement for the habits your body truly depends on. No beverage can compensate for poor sleep, chronic stress, physical inactivity, or an unbalanced diet. Yet many people unknowingly expect it to do exactly that. They drink another cup when what they really need is better rest. They reach for caffeine when their body is asking for movement. They mistake temporary alertness for genuine wellness. Behavioral experts understand something that most people overlook. The strongest habits are built around identity, not motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Some mornings you feel inspired, other mornings you don't. Identity is different. A person who believes, "I am someone who protects my health," begins making different choices without relying on emotion. They don't wake up asking whether they feel motivated to eat a balanced breakfast or take a short walk. They simply do those things because that is who they believe they are. This psychological shift changes everything. Instead of chasing quick fixes, they begin building systems that support their future. Coffee becomes one small part of that system rather than the foundation holding it together. Imagine two people standing in the same kitchen every morning. Both are over 60.